Hello everyone. The topic that we will be learning about today is food waste management and valorization, a sustainable approach towards a better future. And the subtopics that we will be learning about today are mentioned in the slide. Let us first look into what food waste actually means. Food waste means any food that was fit for consumption but has been discarded or not eaten due to various reasons, and this occurs at different levels of food supply chain. And most often, the terms food loss and food waste are interchangeably used or commonly used together. Food loss occurs before the food reaches the retail, whereas food waste occurs after the retail point and until the consumer in the supply chain. And as mentioned earlier, food wastage can occur at different levels of the supply chain, such as production and harvesting, post production, retail and distribution, food processing industries, packaging areas, or even at household sectors. And this problem of food wastage is a very serious and a global issue which is prevalent everywhere across the globe. And this situation of food wastage often impacts the environment, economy, and the society in different ways. When speaking about environmental impact of food waste, the enormous amount of food waste that is dumped carelessly leads to the emission of greenhouse gases, which in turn leads to biodiversity loss and deforestation. And this is a domino effect that is observed everywhere in the world. And when speaking about economical impact that food wastage has, it involves financial losses that farmers, processors, retailers, and consumers suffer at a global level. It is also partly caused due to supply chain inefficiency, and this leads to wasting food and also loss of food during production and post harvesting times. It also has a social impact where it leads to hidden hunger and food insecurities among the population. And it is very important to look at the global scenario of food wastage because, according to statistics, over 1 billion meals are wasted every day, and about 1.3 billion tons of food is annually wasted. And this is a humongous number. And when we look at all these statistics, we know that food insecurity is a very serious issue which is caused due to food loss and food wastage. And from the statistics and data collected in 2022, we see that over 783 million people have faced acute hunger, which reveals the hidden hunger and food insecurities that people are suffering from. Whereas one side there's tons and tons of food that is wasted, on the other side there are people who go hungry. Another important statistical data to look into is the environmental impact that food wastage causes. Here in the slide, we can see that about 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions are caused due to food wastage alone. And this gives an insight into the gravity of the situation across the globe. And here is a picture which helps us understand the distribution of the regional waste generation across the world. So far, we've looked into what is food waste and what is a global scenario caused due to food waste. Now, let us look into what are the different sources of food waste and how it can be generated. Technically speaking, food waste can be categorized into food loss and food waste as we have discussed earlier in the first slide. And these food waste can be generated across different levels of food supply chain. Speaking about production of farm level, we see that this stage involves primary production of food before it leaves the farm. These discards here are generally categorized as food loss. Examples of the food that is wasted or lost here in this level is mostly damaged crops, surplus crops, or unharvested crops. There are various reasons why this can happen. Some of them here are aesthetic standards which are not met properly, oversupply or low market prices, sometimes improper harvest timing, or even losses caused due to unpredictable natural causes. Now, looking at the post harvest handling, storage, and processing, this level includes storage on the farm, transportation, initial handling, and manufacturing into finished products. Here, the discards can be categorized into food loss majorly, but it can also be categorized into food waste. This is because food loss is the waste that is generated before the retail point. Hence, post harvest handling of crops and their storage in the initial period, and anything which goes wrong at that time would be classified as food loss. And this can happen because of poor infrastructure or even contamination, pest infestation, etc. When looking at processing industry, we see that converting a raw material into a finished product would result in inevitable production of food waste, such as peel, husk, seeds, pulp, etc. And these wastes have to be discarded or used wisely. And coming into retail sector, we see that this is the point where the food product finally reaches the consumer, and this here can be considered as food waste. Reasons for the retail sector to have food waste are damaged and spoiled goods, overstocking and display tactics, sometimes products not being perfect or not meeting the perfection standards, which leads to them being rejected, or sometimes due to label confusion, which results in the consumer not picking up the product. The next level in the supply chain is the food service sector. This includes restaurants, cafeterias, hotels, and institutions. This sector is responsible for producing a significant portion of food wastage, and the various reasons for this can be customer plate waste, over preparation in the kitchen, spoilage of the raw materials, as well as large menu variety. The last level in the supply chain is the household sector. This is the largest source of food wastage, which accounts for approximately 60% in the global food waste. And here the reasons are poor meal planning, over purchasing of the raw materials, and improper storage at house. Just learning about food waste and its sources are not enough. We need to be wise and utilize the food waste in an innovative and helpful way. Here in this slide, we'll see how food waste can be utilized to make commercial products which are helpful to everybody. Here we see the first product, which is an organic fertilizer which is prepared from organic food waste. What is organic food waste here? It refers to the biodegradable materials of animal or plant origin, primarily food scraps and food soiled paper products, and it also includes yard waste such as dry leaves and branches. Here, the organic food waste and the dry leaf branches are taken and composted in a composting bin. The end result of this process is a dark, earthy mixture which is used commonly as an organic fertilizer. The next product that can be produced using food waste is biogas. Here in this step of biogas production, we see that it is done through a process called as anaerobic digestion, where the organic matter, which is the food waste, is broken down by microorganisms that are working in the absence of oxygen. And this leads to creating a biogas, which is a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide alongside the nutrient rich digestate. This process involves collecting and treating the food waste, then chopping and liquefying it, and then feeding it into a digester where the food waste is decomposed and biogas is released. This biogas, which is produced, is usually used as a fuel in different areas and different needs and requirements. The third way that we can use food waste to make something commercially useful is by converting food waste into animal feed. Instead of discarding food scraps or food wastes, we can repurpose it into animal feed. This helps reduce food wastage, supports livestock nutrition, as well as lessens the pressure on landfills. This is also a very cost effective way for farmers to feed the animals. The different type of waste that can be used in this method are fruit and vegetable peels, pulps, brewery and distillery waste, which is basically spent grains, oil seed cakes, dairy industry byproducts such as whey, which is usually a byproduct in cheese making, as well as cooked food scraps, and this is added after proper food treatment that is done to it. Most often, the food scraps or waste here is either dehydrated or dried to make it more shelf stable, or even fresh byproducts can be given as feed to animal, and sometimes the food wastage is even fermented. And these are the different ways that we can use food waste to make some commercial product out of it and be helpful to others instead of harming the environment. In this slide, we will be looking into valorization of food waste into high value products. The term valorization means adding value or enhancing the product's value. Here we see that food waste is not just waste, but rather it is a resource or reservoir of nutrients, and we can use it to extract the compounds or use them to make different products out of it. And we see that through biotechnological, chemical, and physical processes, it can be converted into products with added economic and nutritional value, which help the economy of the country. Here we see the first way that we can valorize the food waste is through extracting bioactive compounds. Most commonly, fruit and vegetable wastes are used here because they are a rich source of antioxidants such as polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids, and even pigments such as anthocyanins, chlorophyll, etc. These can be produced or extracted from the food waste. They are extracted using different methods such as ultrasound assisted extraction, microwave assisted extraction, supercritical fluid extraction. For example, blackberry and raspberry pomace, which are made of seeds waste, are rich in antioxidants like flavonoids, tocopherols, and carotenoids. Shrimp waste, specifically the shells and heads of them, can yield valuable compounds including carotenoids like astaxanthin, which is a pigment. Tomato pomace, consisting of skin and seeds, yields antioxidant carotenoid called lycopene. We see that the fruit and vegetable peels and even animal byproducts or offals are a rich source of bioactive compounds which can be extracted and can be made into a commercial product and be sold. The second way we can valorize food waste is through enzyme recovery. Enzymes such as amylase, cellulases, proteases are produced by a microbial fermentation of food byproducts. The general enzyme recovery process is as follows. First step is fermentation and then enzyme production. Later, the enzyme is separated and isolated, and then it's filtrated and purified. Thus, we obtain a purified enzyme from food waste. For example, amylases are produced by fermenting a strain of aspergillus with waste bread or potato skins. Another example is xylanases, which are recovered using microorganisms like the trichoderma from rice straw and sugarcane buggies. We see that enzymes, which are a valuable product and are used in different processes across various industries, can be recovered and produced using food waste. The third way that we can valorize the food waste is through preparing or producing biodegradable packaging from food residues. Biodegradable films for food packaging can be made from various food wastes such as agricultural residues, which include banana stems, sugarcane bagasse, rice straw, potato, citrus, apple residues, etc., as well as food processing waste, which are rich in polysaccharides like starch, hemicellulose, and pectins, which are important for packaging or creating a packaging film. And most importantly, it's important for creating a biodegradable packaging film. Examples of food waste that can be used here are, talking about agricultural byproducts, we can use banana stems, leaves, sugarcane bagasse, wheat straw, corn cobs, etc. We can also use fruit and vegetable residues, also other food processing wastes, and by using these, we can form a biodegradable packaging film which can be used in packaging industry for food or other products, and this way we can utilize the food waste wisely. The final way that we can valorize food waste is through extracting nutraceutical ingredients from peels, seeds, pulps of fruits and vegetables. We can ensure that these fruit and vegetable wastes are not just discarded randomly, but instead use them to extract nutraceutical components or ingredients such as antioxidants, fibers, fatty acids, and organic acids. For example, pomegranate peels are rich in polyphenols, flavonoids, tannins, and anthocyanins. By extracting them, we can produce those nutraceutical compounds. Another example is citrus peel, which is a rich source of citric acid, and apple peels contain pectin and other fiber-rich compounds which can be isolated and be used for other purposes in the industry. Though food waste management practices, valorization, making commercial products out of food waste is a very helpful approach, the whole food waste product development and everything has its own fair share of challenges that have to be faced. The first challenge is the economic and technological barrier. Most often than not, the technologies and equipments that are used to convert food waste into high value products are very costly. Advanced technologies such as HPP, biorefineries, and fermentation units are costly and difficult to maintain, which makes it an off putting factor for people to invest in this particular sector or particular area of food waste management approach and valorization. Another thing is processing cost and product value. Some cases, extracting high value compounds costs more than the market price of the product itself, which makes it seem more like loss than gain while doing business. The next challenge is infrastructure and logistics. Many a times, when discarding the waste, people mix up normal waste and food wastage, which makes it harder for segregation and recovery, which in turn makes it impossible to make valorization out of food waste. Another thing is transportation costs. Transportation costs, because moving bulky, low value waste materials to different facilities is uneconomical and most of the time not preferred by people. The third challenge that is there for food waste management is the consumer awareness and acceptance. In any industry, while introducing a new technology or a product, the consumer acceptance and awareness plays a very crucial role. Here, many people do not know about the environmental and economical impact of food waste, and which makes them less aware about food waste management practices. Another factor which makes it impossible or difficult for consumer is a negative perception that people have about producing products from waste. This stigma or prejudice that people hold is something which makes the waste management or valorization of the food waste impossible to be sold commercially on a wide or a large scale. Consumer hesitation to adapt insect protein or adopt to upcycled foods or compost based fertilizers is somewhere the problem and challenge that the waste management or food waste management faces. The final challenge that is commonly seen and observed is the environmental and safety concerns regarding the practice. Improperly handled valorization will lead to microbial risks, and certain wastes may contain contaminants such as pesticide residues, heavy metals, and limiting their safe reuse, which makes it impossible for food waste to be valorized into other products. Energy intensive processes may offset sustainability benefits, which many of us aim to achieve for a better future. With this, I'll conclude my presentation by saying that food waste is not a petty issue that it is dismissed to be, but rather it is a very serious global challenge that has to be addressed because it harms the environment, impacts people, affects the economy of a country, and most importantly, it reveals hidden hunger and food insecurities that are prevalent among people. To deal with this issue, we have adopted valorization, converting the food waste into high value products, commercial products, where various food wastes are utilized. And here we see that it's beneficial to the economy and country, as well as the people and environment. This provides an alternative to utilizing the food waste and addressing the issue rather than just dumping the food waste into landfills, letting it rot, and letting it emit or release greenhouse gases, and these greenhouse gases which in turn create a domino effect, affect the environment, affect the people and the society. And for this very reason, to ensure that food waste management is done efficiently, it requires collaboration across different interconnected branches, because this will ensure that everything runs smooth and without any hurdles or obstacles. For example, among retail and distribution, we can ensure that the products are sold wisely, they use proper display tactics and do not overstock on the product. They ensure that the cold storage or any other storage facilities do not fail halfway through, which will result in product spoilage and wastage. And also, it will and the next thing is research and academia, where people can study and come up with novel technologies and approaches where we can address the issue and in a more efficient way, in a more better way, to ensure a sustainable future. Another is the government and policymakers, which can ensure that food waste is segregated properly, and which makes it easier for segregation for the industries to utilize the food waste to make products. By doing so, we can make an effort towards a sustainable future and save it and keep it in a good condition for the upcoming generation. And with this being said, I shall conclude my presentation. And I would love to thank you all for patiently listening to this presentation. And I hope you all have learned something important and informative through this.